All right, the game of leapfrog continues in the GOP race. This time it's Ron Paul leading a new poll in Iowa, and some potentially ugly things are bubbling up about Ron Paul's past.
He's been hammered with questions about racist newsletters that were written under his name years ago. Here's an example of one. An article criticizing President Reagan for signing legislation approving the creation of the federal Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, complaining, quote, "We can thank him for our annual Hate Whitey Day." He's become very bothered after I asked him about this a couple of days ago right here on American Morning. Listen. So I guess as you get closer to being president of the United States, folks want to know that you don't really dislike black people and people with AIDS and things like that. And I get what you're saying, that you're going up in the polls and people are concentrating.
Excuse me, why don't they concentrate on every word I've ever said, every speech I've ever given, every conference I've ever gone to,
right? And
maybe that's where, maybe my beliefs are more important than, you know, stirring this up.
Yesterday, Gloria Borger brought it up to him, and then he bailed on this subject.
So you read them, but you didn't do anything about it at the time.
I never read that stuff. I've never read it. I was probably aware of it 10 years after it was written. And it's been going on 20 years that people have pestered me about this, and CNN does it every single time. So
well,
when are you going to wear yourself out?
I mean, when you say it's no, but you know, is it legitimate? I mean, is it a legitimate question to ask that something went out under your name?
And when you get the answer, it's legitimate that you sort of take the answers I give. You know what? The answer is, I didn't write them. I didn't read them at the time, and I disavow them. That is the answer.
But you made money off of it.
If you know I made money on it, you know more about my finances than I do.
Do you know that you didn't? I mean,
I don't even know what you're talking about. I mean, you know, if it was published for 10 years, so if that was 1% of all the newsletter, I made money off, you know, talking about gold stocks. I think you're really confused on that.
Okay. Well, it's just a question. I mean, it's legitimate. It's legitimate. These things are pretty incendiary, you know.
Because of people like you.
No. Come on. Some of the stuff was very incendiary, and, you know, saying that in 1993 the Israelis were responsible for the bombing of the World Trade Center, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So.
Goodbye.
They were incendiary.
So this was a newsletter.
And in the newsletter went out to 7,000 or 8,000 people with his name on it. It was very clear that it was his name. Now, I asked him, he said 6 or 8 people might have been involved.
So somebody else was writing these newsletters for him.
So I asked if he could identify the 6 or 8 people and we could interview them. He declined. These were sold newsletters, so there was money to be made off of them. And I think it's fair to say, because we get a lot of tweets, we get a lot of people saying you're unfair to Ron Paul. How many times have you interviewed him? I've interviewed countless times. And we've talked about the Federal Reserve and the deficit and the gold standard. We talk about stuff with Ron Paul, about everything he wants to talk about. So I think it's a legitimate question. We would not get away for writing something under our name and then not explaining how it got written under our name.
So he's disavowing it. He's saying he knows who wrote it, but he's not going to tell anybody who wrote it.
Correct.
And it's ancient history, and he doesn't agree with it.
And it is 20 years old. But as I said to him on TV, as you run for president, you go up in the polls, people shine bright lights on all sorts of things that they don't otherwise care about.
And that's and that's why he may have not been talking about it for a while, but he is in the lead in Iowa, according to some polls. And so now, the closer you get to the presidency, the more scrutiny.
Yep.
All right, coming up.